"What the hell do you think you're doing out here, Nina?" Cole Harrington's voice sliced across the cornfield. He hadn't set foot on this ranch in over 5 years. He'd expected weeds, not ghosts. Definitely not her. Nina Alvarez stood between the rows of corn, dressed in a faded green work dress streaked with dust and sweat. A straw hat shaded most of her face, but not her calm defiance. Her hands were buried deep in the soil. She straightened slowly at the sound of his voice like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "This isn't trespassing," she said evenly. "I've been working this land for almost 3 years. "Working it?" Cole snapped, stopping a few feet away. "This ranch is private property. My corporation owns every inch of it, right down to the dirt under your boots. And don't tell me those kids over there are yours." He jerked his chin toward the old sycamore tree and battered wooden crate. 3 children sat there in a row, shells of corn in their hands, bare feet dusty. 2 girls and a boy, each with the same storm-gray eyes that stared back at Cole from every mirror. He didn't realize he'd stopped breathing. Nina turned to look at them. They were already staring at him, wide-eyed, completely still. She reached for a bucket, but as she bent, an envelope slipped from the pocket of her apron and fluttered into the dirt beside her boot. Before she could grab it, Cole strode forward, voice rising. "Is this some kind of stunt? You disappear for years, then show up on my land with 3 kids who look exactly like me?" She instinctively backed up. "Don't come closer, Cole." But he already had. His polished dress shoes sank into the soft earth. Nina stepped sideways to avoid him, her heel landing on the crumbling edge of an old irrigation ditch. Her balance vanished. With a startled gasp, she tumbled backward into sticky mud. She hit the shallow pit with a wet smack, her dress soaked instantly, braid dragging through gritty water. The envelope lay half-buried by her hand. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then 3 pairs of small feet thudded across the ground toward her. The twin girls jumped off the crate first, giggles cracking into worry. The boy followed, clutching a worn rag he'd used to wipe corn. They crowded around Nina, tiny palms on her arms, shoulder, even her cheek. "Mom, you okay?" one twin whispered. Her eyes, steel. Gray, identical to Cole's, shimmered with concern. The other girl murmured, "Careful, Mama," patting Nina's shoulder. The boy said nothing, simply pressing the dirty rag into her hand like it was some sacred bandage. Cole stared, rooted to the spot. Those eyes. His mother's eyes, once called rare and stormy by strangers, now stared back at him from 3 small faces, all roughly 5 years old. All undeniably his. He staggered back a step. That's not possible." His voice barely held. Nina pushed herself upright. Mud caked down her arms and legs. The children huddled close, forming a small barrier of limbs and fierce loyalty. "They're mine," she said quietly, sweeping wet hair from her face. "That's all you really need to know." "No," Cole rasped, voice cracking. "No, they look exactly... Those eyes, Nina." "They're yours," she said flatly. "All 3. The air shifted. The Arizona heat felt heavier, weighted with truth, like storm clouds rolling over open land. Cole blinked hard at them. One twin, Hazel, studied him, then asked in a tiny voice, "Are you our dad?" The word slammed into his chest, knocking the breath from his lungs. He swayed, jaw slack, heart roaring in his ears. "You knew," he whispered to Nina, eyes narrowing. "You knew you were pregnant when I left." "I didn't," she answered softly. "Not that day." A memory drifted through her eyes, him driving away, car loaded, ambition burning. She'd stood barefoot on the porch, one hand on her belly, swallowing tears. "You never looked back," she said. By the time I found out, your number was disconnected. Your attorney mailed me divorce papers. No return address, no explanation, just signatures. Cole dragged a hand through his hair. You should have told me. You should have stayed, she shot back. His gaze dropped to the envelope half buried in mud. What's that? Nina picked it up and gripped it tight. The letter you never mailed. I found it in your old work jacket months after you vanished. He stared at her, stunned. You kept it? I kept it, she said, to remind myself what I survived without you. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The boy, Jonah, tugged at her sleeve, eyes flicking nervously to Cole. Is he mad? Jonah asked softly. No, baby, Nina murmured, kissing his forehead. He's just surprised. But Cole stepped forward again, slower now, gaze pulled back to the kids like he couldn't help it. Hazel clung to Nina's arm, then reached out. Her small fingers wrapped around Cole's pinky. Her grip was tiny but fierce. Something inside his chest cracked. A dam built from ego, money, and excuses started to crumble. I didn't come here for this, he said, voice rough and unsteady. No, Nina replied, still sitting in the mud. You came to see what your money bought. She nodded toward the fields. But now you've seen something it can't. Cole looked at her, then at the kids. They just stared back, open and unafraid. They weren't begging. They weren't asking for anything. They were simply existing, his past and future breathing in front of him. I don't deserve them, he whispered. No, she agreed quietly, but they do. He had no answer for that brutal truth. Cole Harrington, billionaire developer, the man who bent skylines and dominated boardrooms, stood speechless in a muddy Arizona field, staring at the life he'd abandoned without realizing it. Eventually, his body moved on autopilot, carrying him back through the rows of corn. He didn't remember crossing the field or reaching his truck. One minute he was there with them, the next he was behind the wheel of his black Range Rover, engine humming, hands crushing the steering wheel until the leather creaked under pressure. The image played on repeat in his mind. Hazel's tiny hand gripping his, her voice asking, Are you our dad? He could still feel the warmth of her fingers. He pressed his forehead against the steering wheel and finally let himself breathe. He'd trained himself for years to stay composed in meetings with 9-figure consequences. He could smile through betrayal, bluff through negotiations, exit deals without flinching. But this simple, devastating truth had pierced deeper than any hostile takeover ever had. The sun sank lower, shadows stretching across the fields like long, accusing fingers. Cole shifted the truck into drive, but instead of heading for the highway, he turned toward town. There was an old roadside motel not far off, the Dusty Lantern. It was run by an elderly couple who probably hadn't replaced the carpet since the mid-'80s. Still, it was the closest place he could hide and think. He pulled into the gravel lot, shut off the engine, and stared through the windshield. The building was small, with the chipped paint and cloudy windows. A faded American flag hung crooked near the office door. Cole inhaled slowly, then climbed out. Inside, the smell of lemon cleaner and old upholstery greeted him. Behind the counter stood Mrs. Green. Her eyes widened slightly in recognition. Well, I'll be, she said, lips curving. If it isn't Cole Harrington. Haven't seen you since you were running around in ripped sneakers and pretending dip was attractive. He huffed a humorless laugh. I need a room. One night. Long day? She asked, squinting like she could see through him. You have no idea. She didn't push, just slid a key across the counter. That was what he appreciated about the older folks in town. Their silence was its own kind of kindness. Room 3B looked exactly as he remembered. Wallpaper peeling at the corners, air conditioner rattling like an asthmatic tractor, bedspread patterned with some long-forgotten floral design. Still, it was quiet. He sank onto the mattress and pulled his phone from his pocket. The screen lit up with missed calls, emails, urgent texts from executives, a reminder to sign off on a Vegas hotel expansion. He stared at the notifications for a long moment, then flipped the phone face down and set it aside. They could wait. From his wallet, he slid out an old photo, edges worn, colors fading. In it, he and Nina stood on her grandmother's porch. He wore overalls and a ridiculous grin. She was barefoot, holding sweet tea, giving him that look. Half amusement, half surrender. God, she'd loved him. And he had vanished. Not just walked away, disappeared. One day he'd been there. The next, he was flying cross-country, chasing investors, signing contracts, grinning for magazine covers, pretending he hadn't left his soul on a sagging Arizona porch. He'd convinced himself he had time. Time to build, time to come back, time to explain. But time didn't wait. Time simply handed Nina 3 children and watched him miss every first step, every fever, every messy breakfast. His chest throbbed. He realized he didn't even know their names fully. He'd heard Hazel and Jonah. The other girl, Lila, maybe. That's what Nina had called her in the rush. He rubbed his face, then jolted to his feet, the old frame of the bed protesting loudly. He paced the room once, twice, then stopped at the grimy window. Far in the distance, the ranch lights glowed faintly, golden against the darkening horizon. He knew then he couldn't stay away until morning. He grabbed his keys and walked out. By the time he reached the farm again, the sky had mellowed into a deep blue, crickets singing in the dry grass. The porch light burned, throwing a warm halo around the front steps. Cole didn't go all the way up. He lingered by the fence. He shoved his hands into his pockets and waited, heart pounding. The screen door creaked open. Nina stepped out with a chipped mug in hand, a towel wrapped around her damp hair. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "Then why are you?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. Cole stared at the dirt between them. "Because you didn't lie," he said, "and I spent years lying to myself. I told myself this place didn't matter anymore, that you didn't matter, that I could build something new on a broken foundation." Nina said nothing. "I was wrong," he admitted. Still, she stayed silent. "I want to know them," he said finally. "Not because I feel guilty or because of DNA, because when she grabbed my hand, I remembered being human." Nina stepped off the porch, walking until she stood in front of him. "I built a life without you, Cole," she said, voice steady. "One bath at a time, one bill at a time. I scraped mud off boots, prayed through nights, buried my pride deep. If you want a place in that life, you don't get to just show up and make speeches." Cole swallowed. "Then what do I do?" She sipped her coffee, eyes never leaving his. "Start by listening." She handed him the mug and turned toward the house. He stood in the warm circle of light, holding her cup. Vanilla and cinnamon clung to the rim, triggering memories of late-night talks and shared mornings long gone. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a billionaire. He felt like a man hovering at the edge of home. Cole stayed on the porch even after Nina disappeared inside. The mug cooled in his hands. The scent of cinnamon lingered, loosening old memories like dust shaking free from rafters. The life he'd built, glass towers, endless meetings, suddenly felt flat, like a glossy brochure. He lowered himself onto the top step, letting the cool air wash over him. A cicada buzzed in the nearby tree. Somewhere in the dark, a cow complained. It was the kind of soundtrack no city apartment could buy, born straight from the land. The screen door creaked again. Cole turned just as a pair of small bare feet shuffled onto the wood. Hazel. She clutched a frayed blanket in one hand, knuckling sleep from her eye with the other. Her curls bounced with each cautious step. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered, voice thick. Cole opened his mouth, then shut it again. He hadn't prepared for this, the quiet, midnight version of fatherhood. Hazel plopped down beside him without asking, blanket trailing behind like a tired cape. "I heard yelling earlier," she said, staring at the shadowed field. "Were you mad at Mom?" He studied her face, those storm-gray eyes steady and too wise. "I was confused," he said honestly. "And scared." Hazel frowned. "Scared of what?" "Of how much I already missed," he answered. She leaned her small shoulder against his arm. "Mom says there's still time," she murmured. "When I mess up with the goats, she says, you still got time to fix it." Cole swallowed hard. "She's right." They sat in quiet for a moment. "She named me Hazel," the girl continued. "Said something really hard gave her something really soft. Is that true?" "Yeah," he said softly. "That sounds exactly like your mom." The screen door creaked again. Nina appeared, Jonah balanced on her hip and Lila trailing with her thumb in her mouth. "Figured they'd follow the light," she said, setting Jonah beside Hazel. The boy rubbed his eyes, blinked at Cole, then scooted closer to his sister without speaking. Lila hesitated, glancing between Nina and Cole. Her curls stuck up in uneven tufts, pajama shirt buttoned incorrectly. Nina bent, whispered into her ear. Lila nodded, then shuffled over to Cole and dropped onto his other side, leaning against him like it was natural. Suddenly, he was surrounded. 3 warm little bodies pressed against him, all trust and sleepy breaths. His chest tightened with the sheer weight of it. He'd carried multi-billion-dollar projects. This felt heavier and infinitely more fragile. Nina sat on the step a few feet away. "They don't know," she said quietly. "Not the whole story. I never said your name in this house. I didn't want your shadow raising them." Cole nodded. "I understand. But they've always asked," she continued, "who they look like, why their eyes aren't like mine. I told them they were born in a storm," she said, "the kind that tears through everything but leaves good things behind." Cole exhaled. "I was the storm." Nina met his gaze. "And you left wreckage." Silence settled, thick but not as sharp as before. He looked down at the kids. Hazel was already dozing, head heavy on his leg. Lila hummed under her breath, picking at his sleeve. Jonah simply watched him with quiet concentration. "I don't want to just explain who I was," Cole whispered. "I want to show them who I can be." Nina pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, leaning back against the railing. "You want a second chance," she said. He nodded. "It doesn't start with pretty apologies," she said. "It starts with work, real work. This ranch doesn't run on feelings. It runs on hands and sweat and waking up when you'd rather sleep." Cole nodded slowly. "I can show up." She studied his pressed slacks, his expensive watch, the way his shoulders stiffened when the kids shifted. "You willing to ruin that fancy shirt on a chicken coop at 6 a.m.? She asked. "If that's what it takes," he said. She exhaled, her face softening just a fraction. Not forgiveness, just the edge of possibility. "We start tomorrow," she said. "No promises, no expectations, just work." And quiet, she added. You're not here to run anything. You're here to learn. I can do that, he said. Nina rose and opened the screen door. Bring them in when they're all asleep, blankets on the couch. Cole nodded. The night air cooled around them. Crickets sang like backup singers. The scent of damp earth drifted up from the fields. He looked at the 3 sleeping children curled against him. He had no idea how to braid hair or handle nightmares, but he could start by being here when they woke. For now, being present felt like the only honest promise he could make. The rooster crowed at 5:14 a.m. like it had a personal vendetta against rest. Cole groaned on the couch, thin blanket twisted around his legs, his pricey wristwatch digging into his temple from where he'd slept half sideways on a lumpy pillow. His back screamed as he sat up, disoriented for a second before the memories crashed back, the field, the kids, Nina's stare. The living room smelled faintly of coffee and old wood. Yesterday's dress shirt hung over a chair, wrinkled and speckled with dried mud. He shrugged it on anyway, rolling up the sleeves. The hardwood floor shocked his bare feet with cold. When he opened the front door, the crisp morning air slapped him fully awake. The yard was already buzzing with life. Nina stood near the chicken coop. She wore a flannel shirt and jeans, hair braided loosely down her back, one hand gripping a coil of chicken wire, the other braced on her hip. Hazel and Lila danced around her in 2 big rubber boots, while Jonah sat on an overturned bucket with feed. You weren't kidding about the chickens, Cole muttered, stepping onto the porch. Nina glanced at him amused. You think I was being poetic? I thought you were bluffing, he admitted. She tossed him a pair of well-worn work gloves. Welcome to Arroyo Ridge. Breakfast doesn't catch itself. He fumbled the gloves before finally sliding them on. She nodded toward the coop. Sidewalls coming loose. We need to reinforce the base. That mesh won't hold when monsoon winds hit. Cole eyed the crooked wooden structure. Looks like it already survived a war. It has, Nina said, crouching. Just not the kind you know. She handed him a hammer and small bag of nails. He knelt, careful around the pecking hens. You any good with tools? She asked. I own a construction empire, he said. That's not an answer, she replied. He sighed. Haven't swung a hammer since college, maybe. Good day to remember, she said. They worked in near silence. The sun crept higher, painting everything in soft gold. Lila chased a hen. Hazel directed imaginary traffic. Jonah traced shapes in the dirt. Cole swung the hammer, missed, and smacked his thumb. Damn it, he hissed. Nina looked up. You all right? Just bleeding dignity, he grumbled. She almost smiled. You know, he said quietly, I thought about this place a lot after I left. Really? She asked, cutting new wire. Yeah, but always like it was a picture on a wall. Something I didn't deserve to walk back into. Her hands never stopped moving. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, he said. She stilled for a breath. No, she murmured. You left because you loved success more. He dropped his gaze. I thought if I built something huge, it would finally prove I was worth something. To who? She asked. He swallowed. I don't even know anymore. Jonah stood and patted over, offering his small bowl of feed. Here, he said simply. For me? Cole asked. Jonah nodded, then returned to his bucket, satisfied. He takes everything in, Nina said softly. Doesn't talk much, but when he does, you listen. I can see that, Cole replied. Hazel and Lila ran back, dustier than before and twice as cheerful. Dad helped fix the house, Lila announced. Nina's gaze shot up. Cole's heart stopped. Chicken house, Hazel corrected quickly, cheeks pink. No one corrected the dad. Cole ruffled Hazel's curls, and she giggled, leaning into him. "We should wash up," Nina finally said. "Real breakfast's not far off." Cole stood, brushing dirt from his pants. "What's on the menu?" "Grits, bacon, maybe cornbread if the oven behaves." His stomach growled, loud enough for the twins to hear. They laughed. Nina smirked. As they walked toward the house, Cole slowed, watching the kids skip ahead, their laughter tumbling across the yard. Near the porch, something caught his eye. A small rusted wind chime. He remembered buying it at a roadside market their first summer together. She'd teased him for picking the ugliest one. "It's not ugly," he'd insisted. "It just needs the right wind." Now it hung crooked, still managing a thin, stubborn song. He tapped it gently. The sound was cracked, but real. Somehow, it felt exactly like being here again. Imperfect, but alive. He followed the others inside, a strange heaviness in his chest that felt almost like grounding instead of guilt. Today, he'd earned something. Not forgiveness, but a seat at their table. The scent of sizzling bacon hit him before he stepped into the kitchen. His stomach growled again, louder. One of the girls, he thought Hazel, snickered as she bolted past, bare feet smacking the floorboards. The kitchen was smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he'd just grown used to open-concept penthouses. Wooden counters, chipped cabinets, a fridge cluttered with local fair magnets and crooked drawings. It felt more like home than his entire luxury condo ever had. Nina stood at the stove, flipping bacon with efficient motions, braid now twisted into a messy bun. A faint streak of flour dusted her forearm. She didn't turn when he entered. She didn't need to. She knew exactly where he was standing. The kids crowded around the small table. Jonah sat straight-backed, hands folded, patient. Lila hummed, banging a wooden spoon. Hazel watched Cole openly, like she was still deciding what to make of him. He offered a crooked smile. She just tilted her head. He took the chair at the end of the table. It creaked under his weight, one leg wobbling. "Want me to fix this too?" he asked. Nina didn't look up. "You fixing things now?" "Starting with furniture," he said. "People seem more complicated." "Only barely," she muttered. The kids laughed, not really understanding, but craving the sound. When plates landed, the children each closed their eyes briefly before eating. Not quite a prayer, more like a pause of gratitude. Nina leaned on the counter instead of sitting. "I used to hate breakfast," Cole admitted halfway through his grits. "Felt like wasted time. Mornings were for conference calls." Nina raised an eyebrow. "Guess you skipped the chapter on growing kids." He chuckled, surprised to hear himself genuinely laugh. "Guess I did." After they finished, the kids sprinted outside to chase hens. Lila claimed she could speak fluent chicken, which apparently required a lot of dramatic flapping. Cole stayed behind, stacking plates. Nina handed him a dish rag without comment when he reached for the sink. She didn't correct him when he loaded the cups wrong. Instead, she walked to a drawer near the sink and pulled out something he recognized instantly. The envelope, edges worn soft. She set it on the table. "I found this 2 months after you left," she said. "In your old work jacket. I almost threw it in the fire." Cole took it carefully. "Why didn't you?" "Because I wasn't ready to erase you," she said simply. He unfolded the letter. His own handwriting stared back, shakier than he remembered. "Nina, if you're reading this, I didn't have the guts to say any of it out loud. I'm terrified. I'm chasing something I don't know is worth losing you for, and I can't stop now." Doors are finally opening. Investors are calling. I keep telling myself I'll come back, that this isn't goodbye, that when I've made it, you'll understand. Truth is, I don't understand anything. I love you. I just don't know if that's enough. Cole exhaled, slow and rough. I don't even remember writing this, he murmured. I do, Nina said. I remember every word you swallowed before you drove away. He folded the letter again, hands gentler this time, like it was something fragile instead of damning. I should have stayed, he said. She nodded once. But you didn't. He met her eyes. Do they know? The letter? The truth? No, she answered. They just know there's someone they don't have yet. His chest tightened. Can I tell them someday? Maybe, she said, when you've earned that right. Outside, the kids' laughter drifted through the open window, bright and wild. Cole tucked the letter into his back pocket, not as a weapon against himself, but as a reminder of the line he'd crossed. Nina inhaled deeply, then headed toward the back door. You want to help? She asked. Start with the well pump. It's been acting up since spring. Show me, he said. They walked out together into the sun, not shoulder to shoulder, but closer than yesterday. The pump groaned like it resented being touched. Cole knelt beside it, jeans stained with grit, hands smeared in rust. He'd been wrestling with it for nearly an hour, following Nina's instructions, ignoring them, then grudgingly following them again. Still no water. That valve's too tight, Nina called, leaning against a fence post. I know what I'm doing, he muttered. You really don't. He glanced over his shoulder. You ever think bossing people around is what scared the water off? She arched a brow. Cute. I don't remember hiring you for your jokes. He grunted, twisting the handle again. No luck. The pump shrieked and jammed. He swore under his breath. Nina sighed and came over, kneeling beside him. Move, she said, nudging his hand away. You have to coax it, not bully it. The pump responds better to patience than pressure. She adjusted the valve, fingers sure and practiced. Cole watched her hands, calloused and strong, nails short, dirt dug into the grooves. Those were survival hands. Is that how you handle everything? He asked quietly. Even people? Nina paused. Some things crack if you push too hard, others just shut down. A long creak cut her off, followed by a sputter. Water surged up, spilling into the bucket, clear and cold. Nina smiled to herself, then stood, wiping her hands on the towel slung over her shoulder. You're welcome, she said, already walking away. Cole stared at the water. For years, flowing water meant contracts, infrastructure, and projections. Here, it just meant life. He hefted the bucket and carried it back toward the porch. Hazel sat there, concentrating hard as she tried to braid Lila's curls into something that looked more knot than hairdo. Jonah sat cross-legged nearby with a picture book, whispering, I think I can. The pump works, Cole announced, setting the sloshing bucket down. Lila cheered. Hazel clapped. Jonah didn't look up, just smiled and turned another page. Nina stepped out with a rag and tossed it to Cole. You've got grease all over your face, she said, and probably in your soul. He smirked, scrubbing his cheek. Gonna take more than a rag for that. Yeah, she said. I figured. Cole leaned against the railing. When did they start reading? Jonah first, Nina said. He just picks things up. Hazel wants to lead. Lila likes pictures best. They're sharp, all of them. They're survivors. Cole nodded, watching them. Do they know anything about me at all? They know a man left, Her voice stayed even. That's it. He swallowed. I'd like to change that. You don't swap absence with presence like flipping a light, she said. You choose to stay, over and over. I'm choosing, he said. Today, tomorrow, however long it takes. The screen door creaked. Hazel popped her head out. Mom, Lila put jelly beans in the feeder again. Nina sighed. Of course she did. She turned to Cole. You wanted to help. Congratulations, it's Chicken Dad time. He saluted weakly. On it. He found Lila crouched by the feeder, palm full of brightly colored candy, chickens pecking suspiciously around her. They like it, she insisted. They also like pecking their own poop. Doesn't mean it's good for them, he said. What's poop? She asked. He grimaced. Ask your mom. He gently scooped out the candy and replaced it with grain, Lila pouting beside him. Will they forgive me? She asked. He considered. Chickens forget fast. People take longer. She studied him. Did Mom forgive you? The question hit like a punch. I don't know, he answered honestly, but I'm trying. Lila nodded solemnly. Okay, no more yelling then. I'll work on IT, he promised. They walked back hand in hand, her grip confident. Nina watched from the porch, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. That night, after dinner, Nina set an old photo album on the table. She didn't announce it, just placed it there and walked away. Cole opened it. Younger versions of themselves smiled from the pages, sunburned and happy, holding hands beside a busted truck, cuddling a baby chick. Then, abruptly, blank pages. Years of absence spelled in silence. He ran his hand over the emptiness. He wasn't in those years, but maybe, just maybe, he could fill the ones ahead. The next morning arrived with rain, a soft, steady drizzle that silvered everything and carried the rich smell of wet, red earth. Cole stood at the sink, rinsing coffee mugs from breakfast. He'd volunteered again, and Nina hadn't fought him, just handed him a towel and turned to mixing batter. The kids sprawled across the living room floor in a riot of crayons and blocks. Hazel tried to draw a cow. Jonah lined up alphabet magnets in some secret order. Lila hummed, making a game out of a string and toy truck. Cole watched from the doorway, adjusting to how naturally they filled the space. He was the intruder. You're going to scare the eggs if you keep clanking dishes, Nina said, not glancing back. He grinned and rinsed quieter. Thought the rain would cancel chicken duty, he said. Animals don't call in sick, she replied. Neither do moms. How'd you do it? He asked. Alone, 3 kids, this place. Her spoon hovered over the bowl. Didn't have a choice, she said. And even if I did, I wasn't about to let them think they were a burden. There was no bitterness, just fact. I meant to write, he said. After the divorce, after I... You didn't, she cut in. No, he admitted. I didn't. She poured the batter into a pan. But you're here now, she said, and I want to stay, he answered. Nina didn't respond. Instead, she walked into the living room and knelt beside the kids. All right, team, she said. Project time. They swarmed her instantly. Hazel grabbed construction paper. Lila snatched glitter. Jonah held a crayon like a tiny architect. You coming? Nina asked, glancing back. Cole crossed the room and sank onto the floor. Lila immediately shoved a glue stick into his hand. We're making a sign for our treehouse, she explained. You have a treehouse? He asked. Hazel giggled. Not yet, we're manifesting. You know what manifesting is? He asked. Mom says it means we build it in our hearts first, Jonah replied quietly, not looking up. Cole blinked. Well, damn. Language, Nina warned. He smirked. What are we naming this future treehouse? The kids glanced at each other. Hazel spoke first. We want it to be our family name. Cole's marker stilled. Like a team, Lila added, but with feelings. The mighty Alvarez, he joked. 3 little faces frowned. Too cheesy, Hazel declared. Harrington, Jonah whispered. That's yours, right? Cole stared at him. Yeah, he said softly. It is. The room went quiet. Nina watched from the edge, eyes cautious. Jonah turned back to his paper. Then it's Harrington Treehouse, he said simply. Hazel wrote it carefully. Harrington Treehouse, the letters crooked in bright green. She handed the page to Cole. For the door, she said, his name, in their hands. Not a title on a building, but a place in their world. Thank you, he managed. Nina's eyes softened. They gave you a name, she said quietly. Don't make them regret it. I will, Cole said quietly. Outside, the wind started to roar, rattling the siding. The rain thickened, slanting across the yard. Inside, the old farmhouse held, its bones stubborn against the oncoming storm. By nightfall, the storm was in full swing. Wind shook the window frames, moaning through the eaves like some tired ghost. Rain blasted the tin roof sideways, a steady, furious drumming that swallowed other sounds. In the living room, the kids crowded beneath a blanket fort, flashlights flickering against couch cushions. Lila clutched a plastic sword, convinced the thunder belonged to a hungry dragon. Jonah read aloud, voice steady, as if narrating the sky. Hazel didn't speak, just curled her fingers around a tiny carved wooden horse Nina had whittled last winter. Cole stood at the front window, watching the trees bow under gusts, a restless ache stirring in him like airport goodbyes. Back then, storms meant delayed flights and new deals. Tonight, the thought of leaving made his stomach twist. Nina padded down the hallway, robe cinched tight, braid half undone, damp strands clinging to her cheeks. I checked the barn, she said, breathless. East door latch snapped. It's swinging wide. Cole turned from the glass. Anyone out there? Mare and the goat, she answered. If they spook and bolt, we'll lose them in this mess. I'll handle it, he said. She blinked, assessing him. It's brutal out there, Cole. He grabbed his jacket anyway. I've fought uglier weather. After a beat, she nodded. Check the feed room, too. Roof leaks, buckets by the south wall. He stepped onto the porch and was drenched instantly. Rain hit like needles, cold and sharp, but he didn't hesitate. The barn loomed as a dark smudge through the downpour. He slogged toward it, boots sinking into sucking mud. He shoved the east door shut with both hands, the wind trying to rip it away. The latch was completely gone, torn clean. He jammed a shovel across the frame, wedged it tight with a heavy feed bin until it held. Inside, the mare stomped nervously, sides heaving, breath clouding in the cool air. Easy, girl, Cole murmured, rubbing her neck. Just some loud sky, we've heard worse. The goat bleated miserably from a corner, tangled in a loop of rope. Cole moved fast, fingers working by feel, freeing the goat and nudging it back into its stall. His flashlight flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging the barn into darkness broken only by lightning flashes through the cracks. Perfect, he muttered, working off memory. He found the drip, shifted the bucket an inch until the water hit cleanly. The place smelled of wet hay, old wood, and earth. A grounding scent that reminded him what mattered. Turning to leave, his boot caught on something soft behind a bale. He stumbled, then crouched, groping around until his hand closed over fabric. He dragged out a weather-beaten duffel, one corner ripped, zipper stiff with age. Curiosity prickled. He unzipped it. Inside lay several folders, a small tin box, and a folded blue toddler shirt. He lifted the shirt, breath catching when he saw the faint embroidery near the hem. Jonah, stitched in careful thread. It was tiny, something meant for a newborn. He recognized the pattern. Nina had once shown him a sketch of a shirt she planned to sew while pregnant. His heartbeat stumbled. Hands shaking, he popped open the tin box. 3 hospital bracelets lay inside, plastic slightly yellowed, names and times written in fading ink. Tucked between them was a photograph, worn at the corners. Cole stared. It was him and Nina in a hospital room, 3 swaddled babies between them. Nina held the infants, eyes tired but glowing. Cole sat slumped in a chair beside her, head resting against her shoulder, one hand cradling Hazel. He'd been asleep, but present. The memory slammed into him like sudden light. He remembered the squeak of the reclining chair, the beeps of machines, Nina humming a lullaby he never learned. He'd been there. Maybe only a night or 2, but he had held them. "Why didn't I remember?" he whispered. He tucked everything back gently, zipped the duffel, and bolted through the storm, lungs burning. Inside the farmhouse, Nina stood by the stove, drying towels, hair frizzed in haloed chaos. He dropped the bag on the table with a thud. "Why didn't you tell me I was there?" he demanded, hauling out the photo. She turned slowly. Her expression was unreadable for a moment, then softened with something complicated. "You were," she said quietly, "but only barely. You came, saw them, held them for maybe an hour," she continued. "Then, said you had to catch a flight to Denver. You kissed my forehead, promised you'd call, and disappeared. Months went by before I heard your name again." Cole sank into a chair, staring at the photo like it belonged to someone else's life. "I don't remember any of it," he said hoarsely. "You hadn't slept in days," Nina replied, "and I think part of you chose to forget." "I thought I left before they were born," he said. "No," she answered. "You were there when Hazel's eyes opened. You cried, Cole." She swallowed. "Then you walked out and never looked back." The words landed heavier than thunder. "I was a coward," he whispered. "Yes," she said, not cruelly. "You were." She met his eyes. "But now you know the truth. What you do with it next, that's on you." Outside, wind shrieked. Inside, truth finally caught up. They sat in charged silence until tiny footsteps padded in. Hazel stood in the doorway, blanket around her shoulders, eyes sleepy. "Why are you crying, Mr. Cole?" she asked. He swiped at his face. "I'm not," he lied. She climbed into his lap anyway, curling against his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. Nina watched them a moment, then poured another mug of coffee and sat across from him, shoulders relaxing as the storm raged. Outside, rain battered the roof. Inside, something slower but deeper was happening. Reckoning. Old choices, forgotten nights, buried fear, all finally dragged into the light. The storm would move on. What it had uncovered wouldn't. By morning, the ground was slick and dark, smelling of rain and turned earth. Puddles mirrored the bruised sky. Birds tested their voices again from the cottonwoods. Cole stood by the fence line with a shovel, the duffel at his feet. He watched Nina hang damp clothes on the line. Jonah looping circles around Lila. Hazel kneeling over a puddle, inspecting worms like rare treasure. The world had slipped back into its rhythm, but something inside him had shifted for good. That photo refused to leave his mind, one small rectangle where he'd actually shown up. He hadn't earned it then, but maybe he could earn the next ones. He drove the shovel into the ground behind the half-built treehouse. The plot had once been Nina's herb bed, now taken over by weeds. He cleared it, turned the soil, and worked until sweat plastered his shirt to his back and his arms trembled. It felt like penance and promise. "What are you doing?" Nina called from the porch, one hand shading her eyes. Cole didn't stop digging. "Starting something," he said. She walked closer. "That used to be my thyme patch. It died years ago. I'm resurrecting it," he replied. "Why?" she asked. He glanced up, wiping his forehead with a muddy wrist. "Because I found my name again, and I want it to stand for more than broken promises." She watched him for a long moment, then went inside silently. By afternoon, 3 neat rows marked the small plot. Lavender, basil, thyme. Not grand, but intentional. The kids clustered around, staring. "What's this?" Jonah asked, poking the soil. "A garden," Cole said. "I used to be really good at killing them. Figured I'd try keeping one alive." Hazel tilted her head. "Like a plant nursery?" "Kind of," he said. Lila crouched next to him. "Can we help?" He nodded. "It's for you, all of you." Each child pressed seeds into the earth, whispering secret names. Later, Cole carried the hospital photo into the kitchen. Nina stirred a pot of stew, brow furrowed. "I want this, Apu," he said, holding it out. She glanced over. "That old thing?" "It's proof I belonged here once," he answered. "You didn't act like eat," she said. "I know." He set the photo gently on the counter. "But I want them to see it, to know I did show up once, and that I'm here now for real. I thought leaving would make everything cleaner," he continued. "I figured success plus money would patch the holes. All it did was erase me from every moment that mattered." Nina's jaw tightened, but she let him finish. "I was terrified of failing," he admitted, "of being some broke, angry version of my father. So I chased a different kind of ghost and sacrificed the only good thing I ever built." He finally met her gaze. "You still haven't told them," she said, "about being their father." "I will," he promised. "When?" He swallowed. "Soon, but not before I've begun to earn that word." The air felt dense, heavy with regret, thin with fragile hope. "Then you should be the one to tell them," Nina said quietly, "when you're actually ready to carry it." Cole nodded, breath catching. He picked up the photo again. "Do you remember what we were laughing about here?" A faint smile tugged her mouth. "You called the nurse ma'am. She was 22 and made you change a diaper as payback." Cole huffed a soft laugh. "Yeah, that tracks." She turned back to the stove. He stood there, feeling the weight of his own outline. That night, the kids begged for a real story before bed, not from a book. "Tell one from when you were little," Hazel insisted. Cole sat on the floor beside their beds. Nina leaned against the doorway, listening, arms folded. "When I was your age," Cole began, "I thought thunder was giants bowling." Lila gasped. "For real?" "Yep. If you listened close, you could tell who was winning." Jonah frowned. "There aren't giants." Cole smiled. "Not outside, just the ones in our heads." "What do they do?" Hazel asked. "They remind us we're scared," he said, "so we remember to be brave." He looked up. Nina's gaze softened before she slipped away, leaving the bedroom door cracked open behind her. Later, beneath a bright moon, Cole sat beside the new garden. He slid the photo into a plastic sleeve, buried it beneath a flat stone, and whispered, "This is where my name starts over." Morning came warm and strangely still. No breeze, no rustle. Even the chickens seemed subdued. Cole woke early, as he had all week, uneasy without knowing why. In the kitchen, Nina sat with coffee in one hand, an envelope in the other. He slowed when he saw her. She didn't look up. "Mail truck barely made it through the mud," she said. "Left this on the porch." She slid it across. "Return address. Thorne Legal Group, Phoenix." Cole's stomach knotted. He tore the envelope open and scanned the single page of heavy stationery. His jaw tightened. "They're filing," he said. "Formal claim to the land. Arbitration on grounds of abandonment. Improper transfer. And a lapse in early tax filings." "I paid every year," Nina shot back. "Never missed." "I know," he said. "They're banking on the original deed I never signed over. They want to call this whole place a clerical error they can fix." He folded the letter carefully, laid it flat on the table, and sat down. "They're gambling I'll walk instead of going to war." Nina snorted. "They clearly forgot who I married." A reluctant smile tugged his lips, then faded. "They have deep pockets, teams of attorneys," he said. "We have 3 kids, a patchy fence, and a well pump that only behaves when you sweet-talk it." "We've got more than that," she replied. "We've got roots." "You ever consider selling?" he asked quietly. "Starting over somewhere they can't follow." She didn't even blink. "Not once." Cole leaned back. "Then we fight." Nina stood, grabbed her keys from the hook. "Damn right we do." That afternoon, Cole sat under the cottonwood with the kids, sketching ideas for the treehouse. Hazel argued for a pulley system. Lila wanted curtains that fluttered in the breeze. Jonah lobbied for a hidden trapdoor. "Why a secret hatch?" Cole asked. "For hiding things," Jonah said seriously. "Letters. Stuff you don't want to lose." The words landed heavier than they should. Cole ruffled his hair. "We'll figure out a masterpiece." From the porch, Nina watched, then vanished inside. She returned with a small wooden chest, edges smoothed by years. "Plan to give them this at 10, she said, handing it to Cole. "Maybe now's better." Inside were stacks of envelopes, names and ages scrawled on each. "For Hazel, for Lila, for Jonah," Nina said. "One every year. I wrote what they loved, what they said, who they were, just in case I wasn't here to tell them later." Cole blinked hard. "You did all this alone?" She nodded. He opened one labeled Hazel, 5, and read aloud. "Today, you announced the moon is a giant nightlight. Honestly, that makes more sense than anything I've heard on the news." His throat tightened. "They need to read these." "One day," Nina said. "When they're ready." He looked up at her. "You're the strongest person I've ever known." She shrugged. "I just didn't have the luxury of falling apart." "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore," he said. For the first time, when their eyes met, she didn't flinch. That evening, Cole brought out a notepad on the porch and started his own letters. To Jonah, he wrote, "You remind me of who I was before fear got loud. Don't ever quit asking questions, even the ones adults avoid." For Lila, he wrote about courage that looked like joy. For Hazel, he penned, "You lead with your heart. People will tell you that's naive. They're wrong. It's the bravest way to live." And to Nina, he wrote about second chances he didn't deserve, but refused to waste. He folded each carefully, tucked them into the wooden box beside Nina's. A breeze stirred the cottonwood leaves. Soft footsteps approached. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked without turning. "Not really," Nina answered, stepping beside him, barefoot, hair loose, eyes clear. "Guess you couldn't either," she added. "Too much on my head," he said. "Ours," she corrected. "I think we should tell them," she continued. "About me?" he asked. She nodded. They deserve the full story. Who they are, who's here now. You think they'll understand? He asked. They're kids, she said. They'll cry, ask questions, maybe get mad, but they'll have truth. That's more than some adults ever get. He drew a slow breath. Tomorrow morning, he said. Then we do it together, Nina replied, her fingers brushing his. Under the Arizona stars, they sat shoulder to shoulder, holding letters, memories, and the fragile, fierce decision not to hide any more. Morning light crept into the house like an apology, soft, golden, unhurried. It lit the scuffed floorboards where small feet had danced, where juice had spilled, where Lego pieces had stabbed unwary arches. Cole sat on the couch, hands clasped. The wooden box of letters rested on the coffee table like a witness. In the kitchen, Nina watched the clock. Sure, he asked. Not even a little, she answered. But we're doing it anyway. That was enough. The kids barreled in, Lila with one sock, Jonah gripping a toy dinosaur, Hazel yawning around a book. Breakfast? Hazel asked, flopping beside Cole. Soon, Nina said gently. We need to talk first. The tone froze all three. They sat straighter. Cole opened the box slowly. I want to tell you a story, he began, not about dragons or spaceships, about you and me. Jonah frowned. Us? Yeah, Cole said. And the man I used to be. You know me as Mr. Cole, he said. The guy fixing fences, building your treehouse. But a few years back, I wasn't just that. I was someone who loved your mom and then ran away. I thought leaving would protect her, he continued. Instead, it just meant I missed everything. I missed first steps, fevers, birthdays. But I didn't miss it all. I was there for a little while when you were born. I held you, he said, voice cracking. I cried. Then I left again, and I stayed gone a long, long time. Why? Hazel whispered. He closed his eyes. Because I was scared and selfish. I thought I needed to become somebody first. Are you back now? Jonah asked. Cole looked straight at him. Yes, and this time I'm not leaving. Nina stepped forward, resting a hand on his shoulder. There's more, she said softly. He's not just helping on the ranch. He's your dad, she finished. Lila's eyes widened. Our real dad? From the very beginning, Cole said. Every green-eyed bit of you came from me and your mom. Silence hummed. Hazel's lip trembled. Why didn't you say so before? Because I wasn't sure I deserved the title, he admitted. But pretending didn't feel right anymore. You deserve to know who you are and who's standing here. Jonah stood, shoulders squared. That's why we all look like you, he said quietly. Yeah, Cole managed, smiling. Guess so. Lila chewed her thumb. Does this mean you're staying forever? If you want me, he said, I'm here to stay. For a beat, no one moved. Then Jonah launched forward, wrapping his arms around Cole's neck. Hazel followed, then Lila, and suddenly he was buried under three small bodies, their arms and tears tangling around him. Please don't leave again, Hazel whispered. I won't, he said into their hair. Not ever. Nina turned away, wiping her eyes. Later, they raised the first real wall of the treehouse. Cole steadied the boards, guiding tiny hands as they hammered nails. Lila christened each plank with an animal name. Jonah carefully outlined plans for a hidden hatch. Hazel took notes like an archivist. Mismatched sandwiches and lemonade appeared courtesy of Nina. She watched from the shade, letting the laughter rise. At one point, Hazel tugged Cole aside. Can we call you Dad now? She asked. His breath snagged. Only if you want to. She grinned. Okay, but sometimes I'm still calling you Dad King Fix-It. He laughed, heart full. That evening, Nina found him on the porch with the letter he'd written her. She sat beside him, quiet, before unfolding it. When she finished reading, she didn't say much, just rested the page on her knees and whispered, "You're doing the hard work now, showing up. That counts more than any apology." The sky burned orange over the fields. "Think they'll really forgive me?" he asked. "They already have," she said. "Kids are miles ahead of us. We're the ones playing catch-up." He exhaled slowly. She squeezed his hand. "You're their father, Cole. That's not going away." "Thorne's not taking this place," he said, "no matter what they throw at us." Nina's eyes sharpened. "They'll come harder next round." "Then we push back smarter," he replied. The screen door squeaked. Lila poked her head out. "Mom, Dad, can we have a campfire tomorrow?" she asked. "If the weather behaves," Nina said. Lila's smile lit up the porch before she disappeared again. Cole glanced over the land. Fence lines, newly turned soil, the half-painted Harrington treehouse. Home, he thought. Finally. 2 days later, a sleek black SUV rolled into the drive, dark windows and city shine clashing with faded clapboard and dust. Cole spotted it from the eastern fence, wiping sweat on his shirt. He tossed his pliers in the toolbox and headed toward the house. Nina stepped onto the porch, dish towel over her shoulder, eyes narrowing. The kids were inside, glued to a nature show. The SUV door opened with a smug click. Logan Bradford emerged, same polished smirk, different suit. A second man followed, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes, clutching a briefcase like a weapon. "Mr. Harrington," Logan called. "Ms. Alvarez, can we have a moment?" "You've got 60 seconds, Cole said, stopping at the bottom step. "After that, I call the sheriff." The older man stepped forward. "Walter Ridley, senior counsel for Thorne Industries." "Well, Walter," Nina said coolly, "that's 30 seconds gone already." Walter didn't flinch. "We're not here to bully you. We're here to offer resolution." Cole snorted. "You don't drag a lawyer out to a ranch for resolution. You come to take something." Ridley opened his folder, voice smooth. "Thorne is prepared to extend a final offer," he said. $5 million. Clean sale. Quick close. You walk away with more than enough to start fresh somewhere new." Cole folded his arms. "We're not starting over. We're staying put." "Let's be realistic," Logan added. "This patch of dirt isn't worth a fraction of that. We're paying sentimental markup here, mercy money. You won't see a better number." Nina's eyes narrowed. "You don't overpay unless you're hiding something." Ridley hesitated. "We have expansion plans," he said. "Renewable energy fields, logistics hubs. This property is critical to statewide infrastructure." "And you still don't own it," Cole said. "Not now, not ever." Logan's smile thinned. "If you decline," Logan warned, "we proceed to full litigation. You might win, you might not. But we'll drag this out until the cost crushes you." Cole stepped onto the porch beside Nina. "We've got truth, title, and 3 kids who call this home." "And we know," Nina added. "The last owner died owing your company. You're not just buying dirt, you're burying ugly debt records." Ridley's jaw went rigid. "You've been warned," Logan said. "Next move won't be friendly." They climbed back into the SUV and reversed down the drive, dust swirling behind them. That night, the dining table disappeared beneath receipts, tax stubs, old deeds, and borrowed legal guides. Nina brewed fresh coffee while Cole sorted piles. "They're coming for blood," Cole muttered. They've been doing that since their first glass tower, Nina replied. This is just the local chapter. He looked up. They think I'll snap. Will you? She asked. No, he said. But I don't want the fight to poison everything. The kids just learned they can call me Dad, he said. I don't want their first memory of that to be me exhausted on a witness stand. Nina slid into the chair beside him. Then we fight smart, not loud. You've carried this alone a long time, he said. She nodded. But not anymore. You picked up a hammer and a last name, that's partnership. Cole hesitated. There's more. Thorne's been buying up farms through shell companies all over the county. They're building something big, Nina said. Vacation airstrip for executives? Closer to a private logistics airport, he replied. Runways, warehouses, routes that cut through reservation land if they get these parcels. She exhaled sharply. So it's bigger than U.S. Much bigger, he said. She grabbed her phone. I know someone at the county recorder's office could help us dig into early filings. Cole raised a brow. We go public with this? Nina met his gaze. Let it storm. Next morning, the farm exploded with color. The kids painted treehouse walls, lavender on one side, deep red on the other, a hard-won compromise. Cole balanced on the platform, hammering, while Lila stood below with a notebook. What's that? He called. Treehouse rules, she declared. Read 'em? Hit me, he said. Rule 1, no fighting. Rule 2, no lying. Rule 3, no cookies without asking. Hazel's in charge sometimes. Rule 5, always tell the truth, even when it's scary. That's a tough rule, Cole said. Good one, though. Hazel climbed up beside him. Especially when you're scared, she murmured. Especially then, he agreed. From the kitchen window, Nina watched, love and fear twisting inside her. The next envelope came from the county courthouse, crisp and official. No stamp, just a hand delivery stamp. Notice of civil action. Cole held it like it buzzed. Here we go, he murmured. Nina hovered by the counter, jaw tight. He read aloud. Preliminary hearing. 10 days. Thorne Industries, visa. Cole Harrington and Nina Alvarez for unlawful occupancy and trespass on corporate-acquired property. They're calling us squatters, Nina scoffed. I've got 27 receipts that disagree. They want to drag this out until it hurts more to stay than to sell, Cole said. Then we find someone who knows how to swing inside a courtroom, Nina replied, snatching her keys. Who? He asked. Marion Coulter, she said. The attorney who took down Gold Line Mining 10 years ago, Cole asked. The same, Nina said. She got death threats and never blinked. If anyone knows how to handle giants, it's her. You think she'll take us? She'll take me, Nina said, eyes flashing. The drive to town was quiet. Mesquite and saguaro blurred past. Nina's hand stayed steady on the wheel, knuckles relaxed but determined. Cole watched the desert roll by, training his breath to match the road. They parked behind a narrow brick building wedged between a resale shop and an old feed store. The brass plaque by the door read, Coulter and Reeves, Legal Counsel. Inside, the walls were crowded with framed photos. Marches, protests, courtroom sketches, hand-painted signs. A woman in her 60s, silver curls pulled back and dark skin lined from sun and laughter, looked up from behind a paper-stacked desk. You brought backup this time, she said. Marion, Nina smiled, shaking her hand. This is Cole Harrington. Marion studied him, gaze cutting clean through excuses. The runner, she said. Cole winced. Trying not to be, he replied. She jerked her chin toward 2 worn chairs. Good, Sit, we've got work to do." For an hour, they laid everything out. Deeds, kids' birth certificates, payment records, the timeline of Cole leaving and returning, the shell corporations, the airport rumors. Marion scribbled notes in tight, slanted handwriting, never interrupting, occasionally grunting at particularly ugly details. When they finished, she snapped her notebook shut. "This isn't just about your ranch," she said. "This is a playbook. They've targeted small holdings, mostly families of color, for 2 years. Quiet acquisitions through dummy LLCs. If they win here, it's open season." "That's what I was afraid of," Cole said. "I'll take the case," Marion replied. "But if we do this, we do it loud. Press, interviews, depositions. They'll drag your names, your finances, your kids, your old mistakes into the sun." "I'm ready," Cole said. Nina nodded. "Me too." Marion's smile was thin and fierce. "Good, because they sure as hell won't fight fair." By the time they pulled back into the drive, dusk was painting the fields in smoky purple. The kids sat on the porch, painting small signs. Hazel carefully lettering no grown-ups without permission. Jonah sketching a crooked arrow labeled Fort Freedom. Lila printing Harrington House in chunky pink letters. Cole stepped down from the truck. "Why that name?" he asked Lila, nodding at her sign. She shrugged. "Because it's ours now," she said matter-of-factly. "Sounds like home." His throat tightened. "You like it?" "Duh," she said. "Help me outline?" He crouched beside her with a brush. "Only if we go slow," Jonah warned. "This is permanent." "I can do careful," Cole promised. Nina brought out lemonade and paper cups, watching the scene with quiet pride, pain, and something like relief. That night, Cole stood in the living room doorway, studying the mantel. 3 frames sat there now. The kids together, Nina holding newborn Hazel, and the Polaroid from the hospital, newly nestled in a simple wooden frame. Nina walked in, drying her hands on a towel. "Marion files the countersuit tomorrow," he said. "Then we're officially in the ring." She exhaled, long and slow, the kind of breath people take right before doors open. "Good?" Cole reached into the drawer and pulled out another envelope. "What's that?" Nina asked. "My will," he said. She stiffened. "Don't." "I have to," he replied. "It names you sole owner of Harrington Ranch. No loopholes, no corporate interpretations. If anything happens, they still don't get this land." Tears pooled at the corners of her eyes. "I hate that we're talking about this." "Me too," he said. "But for the first time, I actually know who I am and where I belong." "You're their father," she whispered. "You're my family. No boardroom or lawsuit is ever taking that away." He cupped her face. "Let them try," he said. She kissed him, soft, certain. For a moment, everything else vanished. Outside, the wind rose, carrying heat and the metallic tang of distant lightning. Trouble was coming, but so was something else. Justice, if they were willing to bleed for it. The county courthouse looked like an abandoned bank, sun-bleached and square. Inside, air conditioning hummed too cold, too clean. Cole stood beside Marion at the defense table, suit slightly wrinkled. Nina sat behind them, anchor steady. The kids were home with Miss Clarice Boone, who'd promised cinnamon rolls and cartoons. Across the aisle, Logan leaned back, pen tapping in smug rhythm. Ridley flipped through motions with the casual boredom of a man sure of victory. The bailiff called for order. Judge Raymond Bellamy entered. Silver-haired, lined, eyes sharp with practiced skepticism. "The case of Thorne Industries versus Harrington and Alvarez," the clerk announced. Marion rose. "Your Honor," My clients have maintained, improved, and lived on this land for over a decade. We'll show Thorne's claim is baseless and part of a larger predatory pattern. Ridley followed. This isn't a morality tale, Your Honor. It's a title dispute. Mr. Harrington abandoned the property, failed to transfer deed, and left it dormant. My client seeks to restore lawful ownership through proper channels. Cole swallowed anger, thinking of Nina's calloused hands and the kid's footprints in the dust. Judge Bellamy nodded. We'll hear preliminary arguments. Back at the ranch, Miss Clarice had set up a lemonade table near the gate, an idea sparked by Lila. They weren't charging, just pouring cups and telling every neighbor, "This is our ranch, and we're staying." Folks came steady, farmers, retired teachers, veterans, even the high school principal. Pastor Harold arrived with a folding chair and a hand-painted sign, "People Before Profit." Hazel recorded little interviews on her tablet. "What do you remember about this place?" she asked an elderly rancher. He wiped his eyes. "Your mama gave me eggs every Sunday after my barn burned," he said. "That's what I remember, sweetheart." In court, Marion stacked their evidence: tax receipts, repair invoices, photos of fences rebuilt and wells restored, sworn statements from neighbors. Then she held up an old black-and-white photo. "This is Thomas Harrington," she said, "Cole's father. He worked this land until he died here. This farm isn't just acreage," she continued. "It's legacy. And Thorne's acquisition strategy targeted families like this, assuming they couldn't afford to fight back." Logan sneered. "Legacy doesn't trump law." Marion smiled. "Then let's talk about the law you broke." She introduced internal Thorne memos, authenticated days earlier, one's flagging Harrington Ranch as a minority optics risk and recommending shell companies. The courtroom shifted. Days later, when Judge Bellamy ruled fully in their favor and restored the ranch to Cole and Nina, the message rang, clear. Land holds memory, and when ordinary people stand together, even giants fall. Lesson 1. It's never too late to come home. If you've lived long enough to watch the kids grow up and the joints grow stiff, you know regret can cling like red Arizona dust. Cole Harrington learned that the hard way. He walked away from a good woman, a piece of land, and the babies he was too scared to stay for. Years later, standing in that muddy field with 3 gray-eyed children calling him Dad, he discovered something many of us learn late in life. The door to home doesn't always slam shut. It creaks, it groans. But when you finally find the courage to knock, sometimes it opens just enough for you to step back in and start sweeping up the mess you made. Lesson 2. Family is built in small, uncomfortable moments. Older folks understand this better than most. Family isn't just wedding photos and Christmas cards, it's 5 a.m. Roosters, sore backs, and hard conversations you'd rather avoid. Cole didn't earn his way back with fancy words or big checks. He earned it by smashing his thumb with a hammer, hauling leaky buckets, sitting under a blanket fort during a thunderstorm, and letting 3 little bodies fall asleep against his chest. Those everyday aches and interruptions, the ones we sometimes grumble about, are the very stitches that hold a family quilt together. You don't buy that kind of love. You show up for it, one ordinary, uncomfortable moment at a time. Ordinary people can stand up to giants. By the time we reach our 60s and 70s, we've watched big companies swallow small towns and neighbors lose farms their grandparents carved out with their bare hands. Nina refused to let that happen. With worn work boots, a stack of receipts, and a backbone made of prayer and grit, she and Cole stood up to a billion-dollar corporation that thought it could bully them off their own porch. With the help of a seasoned attorney and a watching community, they proved something every elder in America knows in their bones. When you protect your land, your name, and your children's future, you're stronger than any shiny high-rise or smooth-talking lawyer. That's not just a legal victory, that's legacy. In the end, Cole and Nina's story reminds those of us with silver hair and full photo albums that it's never too late to mend what's broken. You can come home, roll up your sleeves, claim your ground, and leave behind more than bank accounts. A living example of courage for the grandkids watching your every move. Friends, after walking through Cole and Nina's journey of second chances, family, and fighting for the land under their feet, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment later in life when you tried to make something right, with your children, grandchildren, or an old friend, or had to stand up to someone bigger than you to protect what mattered? What did you learn from it, and what would you tell a younger person facing the same battle today? Share your story in the comments, like this video, and subscribe so we can keep growing together.